Howdy watch fans, here's hoping you are enjoying some happy days and life is treating you well. For this episode, I continue with the Oris trend from the previous episodes covering my visit to Holstein, Switzerland, with a review of the Oris Diver 65 Topper Edition. So, if you like Oris or the retro-inspired 65, hey, stick around. So, in the last episode, I shared a bit of my watch adventure visit to Oris HQ and the town of Holstein. I'm building off of that for this episode to share a little bit about the watch I was wearing during my visit to Basel and Oris HQ. Around a year ago, I had the opportunity to work in San Francisco and visited the Topper Fine Jewelry store in Burlingame, California, which is about a 40-minute drive, depending on how awful traffic is, from downtown San Francisco. The store had just received a new Topper Maxi and I jumped at the chance to check it out. Well, long story short, the watch was gorgeous, and so I grabbed the Topper Maxi limited edition from the actual Topper store with which it was associated. For those unfamiliar with the Topper Maxi, it's a collaboration between Topper Fine Jewelry, a familiar face in watches and jewelry established in 1940 in the Bay Area, and Oris. Released in 2020, the goal was to create a large presence Diver 65 model without the faux aging. In other words, create a Diver 65 highlighting what it would have looked like if you bought it brand new during the 60s from the Topper Jewelry store, which is an interesting concept among the recent lust for faux patina and aged luminous markings. So in order to understand the Topper Maxi, we need to get a better understanding of what was the inspiration for the modern Diver 65 that made its debut in 2015. For this task, I did a bunch of snooping around the internet and found some great articles and started to understand the inspiration for the Diver 65. According to a great article on Fratello Watches, linked in the video description, the Topper Maxi with its 36912 silhouette Arabic dial is based on a series of dive watches from Oris with the markings Oris Waterproof emblazoned on the dial. Interestingly, the original 1965 Oris Waterproof was only 36mm, which is quite small compared to its modern iteration. The original 1965 Oris Waterproof also featured a brass case which was chromium plated instead of the steel cases that we're used to these days. The original Oris 1965 Waterproof also featured a really nice tapered, fully riveted steel bracelet. Typical of the era, the original 1965 also featured a dome plexiglass crystal. And most interesting, the 1965 original boasted the hand-wound 17-jewel Oris Caliber 654 in-house movement with a 46-hour power reserve. Wow. Looking at photos of the original 1965 and the new Oris Diver 65, the look between the two models are fairly consistent. Aside from the obvious differences in size, 36 versus 40 and up, the original 1965 dial featured a pretty bold date window at the 3 o'clock. Also, a few key differences on the bezel can be seen, with the new or modern Diver 65 having a triangle at the 12 o'clock and a 30 marker at the 6 o'clock. For those of you who are much more interested in the original 1965 version of the dive watch, I left a number of links that do a much better job comparing the original 65 to the modern Diver 65, so please take a look for more details in the summary. Now that we have established the roots that inspired the modern Diver 65, let's dive a bit more into the Oris Maxi Topper Edition. We start with the baseline dimensions for the modern watch. The watch features a stainless steel case measuring around 42mm wide, 46mm with the crown. The lug-to-lug measures around 51mm with a thickness of 14mm, with the lug width sitting around 21mm. The Topper Maxi Edition features a double-dome sapphire crystal with anti-reflective coating on the inside. The bezel is aluminum and unidirectional, typical diver markings with an orange pip right at 12 o'clock, Sized for my meaty wrist, the watch comes in at 134 grams on the steel bracelet, much lighter if the bracelet was swapped out with the black tropical diving rubber strap that also comes with the watch. As for the movement, the Maxi Topper Edition is powered by the Oris 733 movement. The 733 is basically the Sellita SW200-1 with Oris embellishment on the rotor. The movement is a 26 joule automatic movement with a 38 power reserve. Typical of the SW200, it runs at 28.8 vibrations per hour or 4 Hz. It's quite interesting to note that the modern Oris 733 or the SW200 is outshined a bit by the in-house caliber 654 which were put into the original 1965 Oris waterproof. Moving on, the bracelet is stainless with a nice style element like brushed links in rivet style linkages that taper nicely. Now the Maxi Topper Edition does not have a fully riveted bracelet and switches over to pin and collar links closer to the clasp, which I assume is done for convenience sake during adjustment. Now, while the baseline statistics seem rather mundane, I have to tell you, ladies and gentlemen, the Maxi Topper has quickly become one of my favorite watches in the collection. After more than a year of wearing the watch, I'd like to give you a bit of the lowdown on ownership, starting with 3 brights and 3 gripes. So, number 1 on the list of bright spots, the concept. I love the idea of getting a modern version of a classic issue watch without all of that "let's make it cooler by making it look like it's really old" that seems to be everywhere these days. Don't get me wrong, I think there's a place in the watch world for the aged luminous, but this watch design deserved the shine and glory that comes with a new watch. And of course, the 165 production run make it a bit special, not to mention getting it from the actual Topper Fine Jewelry shop in Burlingame, California. That was a cool experience. And bright spot number 2. Love the fact that the watch came with an alternative strap. The tropical rubber strap is of plenty nice quality and true to the 1965 inspiration. I have to tell you that the watch looks great on that metal bracelet, but also looks great on that black rubber strap as well. And last but not least, bright spot number 3. Without a doubt, the main positive about this watch has to be the classic design cues. That deep black dial with that white superluminova painted numbers on the 3, 6, 9, and 12 are bold, deeply invoking the period. Coupled with the crown and simple aluminum bezel, the watch just has this very clean and classic aesthetic. Which brings us to the 3 gripes about the Maxi Topper, and I'm going to be perfectly honest with you on this. I had a hard time finding some gripes on this watch. Yes, I like it that much. But if I had to really try hard to come up with gripes about the Maxi Topper, it would be the following 3. Gripe number 1, it's the odd 21mm lug width and lack of drilled lug holes, which makes strap swaps a little bit more finicky than usual. And my gripe number 2, while it is not necessarily a gripe for me, I think the 42mm case would not work for the smaller wrist size, obviously. I personally like the size for its legibility and boldness on the wrist, but I realize that 42mm is pushing the envelope for a lot of watch wearers. And gripe number 3. Yeah, I'm sorry, but I lied. That's it. I can only come up with 2 gripes, and this is easily one of my go-to watches any time of the year. So there you have it. All in all, I think the Diver 65 Maxi Topper Edition limited to 165 has been one of my favorite purchases. I mean, I've been pretty fortunate on this particular watch journey from beginning to end. First, buying the watch at Topper Fine Jewelry, then traveling with the watch on my wrist to the beautiful city of Basel and making my way to the charming and sleepy town of Holstein to visit Oris HQ. It's been a reliable travel companion, and it's such a clean and simple watch that fits so many occasions that it's just been a joy to wear. So there you have it, watch fans, as we say around these parts. Whether you are wearing a new old retro diver or a Timex Expedition, you do you. In the immortal words of the great Humpty Hump of the digital underground, do what you like. Peace.